In the vibrant city of Lagos, there lived a beautiful woman named Folake. Folake was known for her striking beauty, but it wasn't just her face that made her stand out. She had a curvy figure that drew attention wherever she went, especially her very big behind. She was married to Tunde, a hard-working man who loved her deeply, and they had a young son named Bola. Every time Folake stepped out of her house, whether to go to the market or to take her son to school, heads would turn. Men couldn't help but stare, and women whispered among themselves. Her curvy body, especially her big backside, made her the center of attention in their bustling community. The streets of Lagos were always busy, but when Folake walked by, everyone seemed to stop for a moment. The marketplace was one of Folake's regular spots. As she moved through the crowd, dressed in her brightly colored traditional attire, her presence was impossible to ignore. The traders who normally shouted to attract customers went silent for a few seconds, their eyes following her. Even the women selling fruits and vegetables couldn't help but glance at her. "Ah, here comes Falak again," one of the sellers, Mama Risi, would say. "That her backside is something else. Even my husband can't focus when she walks by." The other women would laugh, nodding in agreement. But despite the chatter, Folak always carried herself with confidence. She was used to the attention by now. It wasn't just in the market that Folake caused a stir. On the streets, at church, during parties, or even at casual family gatherings, people couldn't stop talking about her body. Men, young and old, would lose focus whenever she passed by, their eyes glued to her curves. Women would shake their heads, either in jealousy or admiration, depending on their mood. Folak had learned to ignore the comments and stares, but sometimes it was hard not to notice how much attention she got. At church during prayers, she could feel the eyes of the men in the congregation drifting away from the pastor and toward her. Even when she wore her most modest dresses, nothing could hide her curvy figure. One day at a wedding, Folake became the unintended center of attention. She had dressed simply, not wanting to overshadow the bride, but as soon as she walked into the hall, the murmurs began. "Did you see Folake?" people whispered. Some men couldn't help but nudge each other and smile. The bride herself caught people's distracted glances and sighed. Tunde, Folake's husband, was aware of the attention his wife received. Some men in the village would joke with him, saying, "Tunde, you're a lucky man. How do you even keep your eyes on anything else with a wife like that?" Tunde would smile and brush it off, but deep down he was proud of his wife. He knew she was beautiful, and he loved her for more than just her looks. Folake didn't let the attention go to her head. She loved Tunde and was devoted to her family. Though people often focused on her body, she was much more than just her appearance. She was kind, hardworking, and always there for her son, Bola, who was just beginning to understand why people looked at his mother so much. One day, while walking to the market with his mother, Bola asked, "Mummy, why do people always look at you?" Folek smiled at her young son and replied gently, "Because they like my dress, dear." She didn't want to explain to him the complexities of beauty and attention just yet. He was too young to understand that people's fascination went beyond what she wore. In the marketplace, the attention Folek received was impossible to ignore. Even the fruit sellers, who were usually loud and competitive, became quiet when Folek arrived. The men who came to buy food would forget about their shopping lists as they watched her move gracefully between the stalls. "Ah, Folek, you're going to cause trouble for us one day," they joked, trying to hide their admiration. While some people adored her, others were not so kind. There were whispers among some of the women in the village, especially those who were jealous of the attention Folek received. "She's just showing off," one of them would say. "Does she have to walk like that all the time?" But Folek never let the negative comments get to her. She knew that not everyone would understand or appreciate her. Even though Folek tried to stay humble, there were days when the attention became overwhelming. She couldn't go anywhere without being noticed. Sometimes she wished she could blend in like everyone else. But wherever she went, whether it was the market, a family gathering, or a party, all eyes were on her. At one point, the attention became so intense that some men in the village started arguing about her. During a town meeting, some men joked about how they couldn't focus when Folek was around. "It's not easy when someone like her walks by," one of them laughed. But the women at the meeting were not amused. "Control yourselves," one of them shouted back. Despite all the attention, Folake remained focused on her family. Her husband, Tunde, always supported her and made sure she knew how much he appreciated her, both for her looks and for who she was as a person. "Folake, you are not just beautiful on the outside. You have a kind heart, and that's what I love the most," he would say to her often. Folake's kindness was known throughout the village. She was always willing to help people, whether it was offering advice, lending a hand with chores, or simply being a good listener. She didn't mind the gossip or the attention because she knew that her worth went far beyond her appearance. As time passed, some of the women in the village began to change their views about Folake. One day, a group of women approached her at the market. "Folake, how do you deal with all the attention?" they asked. "It must be hard with everyone always looking at you." Folake smiled warmly and replied, "I just live my life. What people think or say doesn't change who I am." The women were surprised by her response. They had always thought Folake enjoyed the attention, but now they realized she was just being herself. From that day, many people in the village began to respect her even more, not just for her looks, but for her humble nature in the way she carried herself with grace. As word spread about her humility, the village began to focus less on Folake's appearance and more on her character. The men still admired her beauty, but they also started to see her for more than just her physical features. She became a respected figure in the community, known for her wisdom and kindness. There was a big festival in the village one day, and as usual, Folake attended with her family. As she walked through the crowd, people couldn't help but notice her, but this time, there was something different. Instead of just focusing on her body, they greeted her with smiles and compliments on how kind she was. Even the men who usually stared without shame began to greet her respectfully. "Ah, Folake, you look lovely today," they said. But now their admiration was mixed with genuine respect for the person she was. Folake noticed the change, but she didn't let it get to her head. She remained as humble as ever. Folake's transformation from being just the woman with the big backside to a well-respected figure in the village was something that inspired others. Even the women who had once been jealous of her began to seek her advice. They wanted to know how she stayed so confident and grounded despite all the attention. One day, one of the women, Auntie Bisi, approached her and asked, "Folake, how do you stay so calm when everyone is always talking about you?" Folake smiled and said, "I've learned that what matters most is how I feel about myself. People will always have something to say, but I focus on what's inside." Her words stuck with the women, and soon Folake became someone they could turn to for advice, not just about beauty, but about life. She became a role model for younger women in the village, teaching them to love themselves and be proud of who they were, no matter what others said. Bola, her son, was growing up fast, and as he got older, he started to notice how much people admired his mother. At first, he felt a little confused about it, but over time, he began to understand that his mother was special, not just because of her looks, but because of her heart. Folake continued to live her life in Lagos, walking through the busy streets, attending church, visiting the market, and participating in village events. Though people still talked about her curvy figure, now they did so with more respect. She had won the hearts of the community through her kindness and grace. Her husband, Tunde, remained her biggest supporter. "You're amazing, Folake," he often told her. "I'm lucky to have you as my wife." Folake would smile, grateful to have a man who loved her for who she was, inside and out. Their bond grew stronger with each passing year. Over time, Folake's story spread beyond their village. People from neighboring areas came to know her as the woman who, despite being admired for her body, remained humble and kind. Her life became a lesson in staying true to oneself, no matter what the world thought or said. Even though Folake still caused heads to turn when she walked by, she no longer worried about the attention. She knew that people would always notice her, but she was content with who she was. Her focus was on her family, her community, and the life she had built with Tunde and Bola. Folake's story is a reminder that beauty is more than just what's on the outside. She showed her village that true beauty comes from within, and that it's possible to be admired for both your looks and your heart. Through her confidence, kindness, and humility, Folake became a woman everyone respected. The men still glanced when Folek walked by, and the women still whispered. But now the talk was different. Folek is beautiful, but she's also wise, they would say. We can all learn something from her. She had turned the attention from her appearance into admiration for her character. As Folake continued to live her life, she was happy knowing that she had made an impact on her community. She loved her family, cared for her neighbors, and showed the world that true beauty is much deeper than looks. Folake's story became one of strength, self-love, and grace. She never let the gossip or the attention get to her head. Folake was always herself, and that's what made her so special. She walked through the streets of Lagos with her head held high, proud of the woman she had become, and grateful for the life she had built. The village no longer just saw her as the woman with the big behind. She was now known as Folake, the woman with a big heart, a strong spirit, and the wisdom to guide others. Her story became an example for everyone, reminding them that kindness and humility always shine the brightest. Folake's beauty was undeniable, but it was her strength of character that left the deepest mark on her village. She had transformed from being a figure of fascination to a source of inspiration. And as the years went by, Folake's story lived on, teaching others the true meaning of inner beauty.